guys, I'm Steve Freeman, and welcome back to the Steve Freeman Podcast. It is so good to be with you. I'm back from vacation. Things are rocking and rolling. It's good to be back on a regular schedule. Today's podcast is all about the drama that is going on between Taylor Swift, Scooter Braun, Scott Borchetta, and the sale of Big Machine Records, or the Big Machine label group. The information on this broke on Sunday that Scooter Braun, he's a famed artist manager. You may have heard of him before. He manages artists like Justin Bieber. He found Justin Bieber, so he manages Justin Bieber, Demi Lovato, Ariana Grande, a lot of big pop, mainstream artists, even into the R&B and urban world. So he's got a lot of reach in that area. Well, it was announced Sunday that Scooter, along with the Carlisle Group and Ithaca, had purchased Scott Borchetta's Big Machine label group for in excess of $300 million. We're going to talk about that, what it means for the music industry, what it means for artists in general. We're going to get into all of that today, and we're going to go over it detail by detail because a lot of drama has happened. So buckle in, get strapped in. It's going to be a good podcast, a lot of information is coming your way. Before we get started today, I want to remind you, no matter where you're listening or watching the podcast, if you're listening on Apple Podcast or iHeartRadio, please subscribe to the podcast. And all you have to do is click subscribe, and it will automatically add each new episode every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday to your playlist. If you're watching the video version on YouTube, please subscribe to the YouTube channel. Click that bell icon so that you're notified every time I upload new content. And I would love to have you follow me across social media. It's at The Steve Freeman on all social media platforms. And I've got something special coming up in the month of July. So stay tuned to the end of the broadcast, the end of the show, and I will give you some details on something I'm doing pretty cool for a couple people in the month of July. All right, let's jump into it. So the big announcement came Sunday that Scooter Braun has purchased Big Machine label group for $300 million. Now, Big Machine, for those of you that don't know, is the house that Taylor built. It was Taylor Swift and a very large investment from her father, who still owns 4% of the record label. It was their money and her success that really launched Scott Borchetta and Big Machine Records onto the mainstream scene. I mean, that if it wouldn't have been for Taylor Swift, there wouldn't have been any money for artists like Florida Georgia Line or Brett Young or any of the other artists that are now associated and a part of the Big Machine label group. So this is where Taylor Swift gets involved, because Taylor was signed to Big Machine since she was 15 years old. Now, she left Big Machine, I guess it was right about a year ago, and went to a new record label, Universal Music Group. This is where the music business is a little bit incestuous, because Big Machine Records and the rest of their label group family are all distributed by and have marketing and distribution deals with Universal Music Group. So Taylor left Big Machine and actually went to Universal Music Group, the label itself. It's the largest record label on the face of the planet. We'll get into some of the details of that in just a little bit, but I've gotten some questions. Some people have emailed me or sent me messages, DMs on social media about when they're reading some of these documents, they don't understand. Okay, so she was with Big Machine, who was distributed by Universal. She left them to go to Universal. What's the difference? So I was trying to think of a good example that I could give you to tell you what the difference is. And here's what I came up with. So, a lot of different grocery stores and Walmart, they sell Krispy Kreme donuts and they're prepackaged and you can buy them there. But then Krispy Kreme also has its own stores where they're hot and fresh. Well, this Big Machine would be like you going to Walmart or Kroger and buying Krispy Kreme donuts from there. Universal is like the Krispy Kreme store itself. That's the best analogy that I could come up with. I don't know if it's any good. That's going to have to be for you in your mind and see if that makes sense. But that's what distribution companies do. They don't own the product. They just distribute the product. So that's kind of an example. We'll get into more details on that. So the news broke that Scooter Braun and his financial partners at Ithaca and the Carlyle Group are purchasing Big Machine for over $300 million. Now, Scott Borchetta will remain as the president and CEO of the company. This is when all hell broke loose. Now, look, Big Machine has been on the market and been for sale for a while now. The Reputation album was Taylor Swift's last album under contract with Big Machine. And the label went up for sale not long before everybody realized that this was Taylor Swift's last album for Big Machine. I called it a long time ago. Everybody said she's going to stay at Big Machine. I said, absolutely not. Why would she? She can do her own thing. She can sign an agreement directly with Apple, or she can go sign with the largest record label on the face of the planet with unlimited resources. And that's exactly what she did. She's had a lot of success since leaving Big Machine, but she's probably one of the top 3 artists in the world. So she's going to have success no matter where she goes. So the label went up for sale. I know that Scott was in talks with several different people, even like the likes of Universal, of just buying and absorbing Big Machine. I know there was some talk between Apple and Big Machine. That was a big, huge rumor, but it never materialized. Then last week, there was something that went around the industry trades about Scooter Braun signing an artist to Big Machine. And that's when it clicked in my brain. And I knew, okay, Scooter can take an artist anywhere he wants to take them, sign them to any record label that he wants to sign them to. Why would he take them to Big Machine? And I started putting 2 and 2 together. And then yesterday, the news came out that Scooter has in fact purchased Big Machine Records. Now, this is where things get tricky. Taylor Swift came out yesterday within hours of the news being released about Scooter buying Big Machine. And Taylor was not happy with it at all. Apparently, she's had there's some bad blood between Scooter Braun and Taylor Swift. We've all heard about the Justin Bieber, Taylor Swift bad blood. Well, Scooter Braun is attached to that because he's Justin's manager and probably best friend. So Taylor lashed out, and you start to kind of get and see behind the curtain of the inner workings of the music business, because when Taylor left Big Machine, she left the ownership of her masters and her compositions that were created while she was under contract with Big Machine with Big Machine. We're going to get into what that means here in just a little bit, but I want to make sure that we do this 100% accurate, and I'm not just pulling stuff out of my ass. So I'm actually going to read you Taylor Swift's response, and then we'll talk about what it means. Then Justin Bieber chimed in, and then Scott Borchetta jumped in yesterday. So a lot of news, but I think it's important that we go over this, because as we conclude today's podcast, I'm going to talk about what it means for you. What does it mean for the music industry? What does it mean for artists? So here was Taylor Swift's verbatim response to the news that Scooter Braun had purchased Big Machine label group, and as a part of that, also now owns and controls her masters for all of those years she was on Big Machine. Here's what Taylor had to say. This is what happens when you sign a deal at 15 to someone for whom the term loyalty is clearly just a contractual concept. And when that man says music has value, he means its value is beholden to men who have no part in creating it. When I left my masters in Scott's hands, I made peace with the fact that eventually he would sell them. Never in my worst nightmares did I imagine the buyer would be Scooter. Anytime Scott Borchetta has heard the word Scooter Braun escape my lips, it was when I was either crying or trying not to. He knew what he was doing. They both did. Controlling a woman who didn't want to be associated with them in perpetuity. That means forever. So she knew that at some point by not striking a deal when she left to acquire her masters, that Scott Borchetta would eventually sell them. I mean, let's face it, her masters and her property that she created while at Big Machine are the most valuable property that label owns. I mean, sure, Florida Georgia Line has had some success. Brett Young has had some success. A couple of the other artists have had small-time successes. But all of them combined can't equal probably even half of what Taylor Swift has generated for that record label and what those masters will generate in the future. So Scott Borchetta had every right to do what he did to sell them. Where Taylor's coming from in this is a personal place. And she's basically saying, hey, I thought you and I were friends. You knew that I didn't like this person, and now you've gone and sold them to the one person that I would never want to have them. So this is personal. This is not legal. There's no legal argument here. She can't do anything about it. So this is 100% personal on Taylor's part. And I understand it. I completely understand it. It'd be like if there were one person out there that you just absolutely hated and you did not like. And let's say one day you paid off your car and you went and traded it in. You bought a new car that you'd been wanting, but you loved that old car. And then the next day you see that one person that you absolutely hate more than anybody on the face of the planet went and bought your old car and is driving it around. Maybe a lame scenario there, maybe a lame story, but that's how I think of it anyway. There's nothing you can do about it, but it still bugs you that of all the people in the world, it's that one person that you don't like that now has something of yours that you value. While there's no legal argument, I do want to say that I understand where Taylor is coming from. There was some dispute as to whether or not she was given the option to purchase her masters when she left Big Machine. Now, there is some documentation on that. We're going to get into that in just a second with Scott Borchetta's response. But it wasn't probably 2 hours after Taylor Swift put this out there on social media land that Scooter Braun Damage Control was in full swing. And one of the other biggest artists on the planet, Justin Bieber, his artist and his friend, came to his defense pretty swiftly. And here's what Justin had to say in response to Taylor. First of all, I would like to apologize for posting that hurtful Instagram post. At the time, I thought it was funny, but looking back, it was distasteful and insensitive. There was this thing, many of you may remember, it's been several years ago when the whole Taylor Swift-Justin Bieber beef happened with Kanye West and all of that. So he's starting off this rebuttal and defense of Scooter Braun by making an apology. And I mean, I think there's nothing wrong with that at all. I mean, you have to kind of commend him. He took full responsibility for what happened with Scooter Braun and Kanye West. But he also said that Braun, quote, didn't have anything to do with it. And it wasn't even a part of the conversation. In all actuality, he was the person who told me not to joke like that. This is what Justin Bieber is saying. He goes on to say, as the years have passed, we haven't crossed paths and gotten to communicate our differences, hurts, or frustrations. So for you to take it to social media and get people to hate on Scooter isn't fair. What were you trying to accomplish by posting that blog? ? Seems to me like it was to get sympathy for you, and also knew that in posting that your fans would go and bully Scooter. Now, one could think that. I mean, that's a natural way to think about it. I don't think that Taylor posted that to get her fans to go bully Scooter. She may have. I don't think so. She's a smart businesswoman. I don't think that is necessarily her style, but she does speak her mind. So, and this is something that affects her deeply. It affects her financially. It affects her business. So for her to come out and say something is perfectly well within the realms of who she is as a businesswoman. But I don't think she was doing it to be malicious. I don't think she was doing it to get her fans to go and bully Scooter Braun at all. I think she simply wanted to weigh in on a situation that directly affects her. Now, no longer had Justin Bieber come out with his statement that the president and CEO, and I guess now former owner of the Big Machine label group, came out with his own statement. And I'm going to read it verbatim. I think Scott's statement is more so trying to set the record straight. Taylor had also said in her statement that she was made aware of the deal as the world found out. So she had no pre-knowledge of this deal was even being negotiated. She had no idea. She learned about it when everybody else did. And I guess she's saying that to say that there was no opportunity for her maybe to counter offer or try to buy her masters if she knew Scooter was buying Big Machine, that she could go in and possibly buy her masters before that deal went through. Although that would never happen because, like I said before, her masters are the most valuable thing that company owns. So Scott Borchetta goes to the Big Machine website and social media. It was picked up very quickly with his response. So I'm going to read his response in depth, verbatim. I may take a couple points here and there to just give some clarity on some points that are being made here in case you don't know about them. But here's what Big Machine president, former owner Scott Borchetta says in response to Taylor Swift's response. Scott says, "So it's time for some truth. In regard to a post today from Taylor, it's time to set some things straight. Taylor's dad, Scott Swift, was a shareholder in Big Machine Records, LLC. We first alerted all of the shareholders on Thursday, June 20th, for an official shareholders call scheduled for Tuesday, June 25th. On the 6:25 call, the shareholders were made aware of the pending deal with Ithaca Holdings and had 3 days to go over all of the details of the proposed transaction. We then had a final call on Friday, June 28th, in which the transaction passed with a majority vote and 3 of the 5 shareholders voting yes, with 92% of the shareholders vote. Out of courtesy, I personally texted Taylor at 9:06 p.m. Saturday, June 29th, to inform her prior to the story breaking on the morning of Sunday, June 30th, so she could hear it directly from me. I guess it might somehow be possible that her dad, Scott, 13 management lawyer Jay Shawties, who represented Scott Swift on the shareholder calls, or 13 management executive and Big Machine LLC shareholder Frank Bell, who was on the shareholder calls, didn't say anything to Taylor over the previous 5 days. I guess it's possible that she might not have seen my text. But I truly doubt that she, quote, woke up to the news when everyone else did. I'm attaching a few very important deal points in what was part of our official last offer to Taylor Swift to remain at Big Machine Records. Her 13 management team and attorney Don Passman went over this document in great detail and reported the terms to her in great detail. Taylor and I then walked through the deal together. As you will read, 100% of all Taylor Swift assets were to be transferred to her immediately upon signing the new agreement. We were working together on a new type of deal for our new streaming world that was not necessarily tied to albums, but more a length of time. We are an independent record company. We do not have tens of thousands of artists and recordings. My offer to Taylor for the size of our company was extraordinary, but it was also all I could offer, as I am responsible for dozens of artist careers and over 120 executives and their families. Taylor and I remained on very good terms when she told me she wanted to speak with other record companies and see what was out there for her. I never got in her way and wished her well. The morning that the new Taylor UMG announcement was going to be made, she texted me shortly before letting me know that the announcement was coming in just a few minutes. As we both posted on our socials, we saluted each other and cheered each other on. Taylor had every chance in the world to own not just her master recordings, but every video, photograph, everything associated to her career. She chose to leave. Just for a pause that for a second. What that means is that the final offer that Scott Borchetta and Big Machine made to Taylor Swift to get her to stay with Big Machine, part of that offer was that they would transfer the rights to all of her masters, all of the property that they owned of hers. If she stayed with Big Machine, they would give her the rights to all of that. They would return all of her masters and she would own everything. Instead, Taylor chose to take another deal and leave the masters with Big Machine. Back to what Scott is saying. As to her comments about being in tears or close to it anytime my new partner Scooter Braun's name was brought up, I certainly never experienced that. Was I aware of some prior issues between Taylor and Justin Bieber? Yes. But there were also times where Taylor knew that I was close to Scooter and that Scooter was a very good source of information for upcoming album releases, tours, etc., and I had reached out to him for information on our behalf. Scooter was never anything but positive about Taylor. He called me directly about Manchester to see if Taylor would participate. She declined. He called me directly to see if Taylor wanted to participate in the Parkland March. She declined. Scooter has always been and will continue to be a supporter and honest custodian for Taylor and her music. Then he goes on, this is the text Taylor sent to me on Monday, November 19th at 8:57 a.m. Now, this is the text from Taylor Swift letting Scott Borchetta know that she is signing with Universal. Taylor says, Scott, I hope this finds you well. Since communication ran dry on our negotiations, I've done what I told you I would do and gone out exploring other options. Owning my masters was very important to me, but I've since realized that there are things that mean even more to me in the bigger picture. I had a chance whether to bet on my past or to bet on the future, and I think, knowing me, you can guess which one I chose. I also saw a rare opportunity to affect positive change for a lot of other artists with the leverage I have right now. I know you believe in the same things I do, and I'd like to think you would be proud of what I've negotiated for in my new deal. I wanted to tell you first that I'll be signing with Lucian, meaning Lucian Grange is the president of Universal Music Group. I honestly, truly cherish everything you and I have built together, and I plan on saying so in my announcement of the new deal. What we accomplish together will be a lasting legacy and a case study on excellent partnerships, and may it continue. I still view you as a partner and a friend, and I hope you feel the same. Sending you a hug and my most sincere gratitude and so much love, Taylor. Scott says, here is the text I sent on the evening of June 29th at 9:05 p.m., meaning just the other day, to inform Taylor that the sale of Big Machine and her masters was actually going to happen. Scott says, Dear Taylor, hope all is well and congratulations on the success of your first two singles from Lover. I can't wait to hear the entire album. I wanted to pass along to you the same courtesy you passed along to me regarding my future. Tomorrow morning, Sunday, June 30th at 10 a.m. Central, the Wall Street Journal will announce that I am entering into a merger acquisition with Scooter Braun and Ithaca Holdings. This move will give us more pop culture superpower than ever before, and I'm so excited about the future. I want you to know that I will continue to be the proud custodian of your previous works and will continue to keep you and your team abreast of all future plans for releases of your work. Nothing but the best, Scott. Also in this article, if you want to go find it, Scott posted a document that is part of the very last proposal that Big Machine, the offer that they made to Taylor Swift. And it does outline that Big Machine offered to return all of Taylor's masters to her if she would have re-signed with Big Machine Records. You'll also notice there that in the text that Taylor sent to Scott Borchetta, she recognizes that she had the opportunity to retain the ownership or get back the ownership of her masters, but that other things were more important to her right now. So, like I said earlier, there's not a legal complaint here. Taylor had a chance to own those masters, and she chose to move on and go to another record label. Whether that was a smart move, who knows? Time will only tell. Right now, it doesn't seem like it was a bad choice. Now, to her today, waking up in the world she's going to wake up in, obviously she has an issue with Scooter Braun, and she doesn't like the guy very much. The reasoning for that, well, that's probably between the two of them, and the public will never really know all of the details. But for her to go public, she has a serious issue. Rightfully so. Who knows? That's between them. But the fact does remain that whatever you think about Scott Borchetta, whatever you think about Scooter Braun, or whatever you think about Big Machine, they did make her an offer for her to be able to retain the ownership of her masters. She chose to leave the record label and not get those masters. This is a mess. This is music business dirty laundry at its finest. It's also, for those of you that are smart, is an opportunity to peek behind the music business curtain and take a good look at the wizards that are running this business. This is a dirty business, guys. You've heard me talk about this on many different occasions. I've seen a lot of things come out over the last couple of days, or last day since this news broke, and everybody's talking about, see how important it is to not sign a bad deal. Taylor Swift was 15 years old when she signed with Big Machine Records. I don't think she made a bad deal. None of us know where we sit today, what the future is going to hold. Nobody knew that she was going to become the biggest artist on the face of the planet. Nobody knew what those masters were going to be worth. It's not that she made a bad deal with Big Machine. You also have to understand, her dad put a lot of money into that record label. Toby Keith put a lot of money into that record label. Not a lot of people know that. But her dad put up a lot of money. He got 4% of the record label in exchange for it. So I don't think that they made a bad deal. Taylor's dad, by the way, is a very smart investor. He's a very smart guy. So this wasn't a newbie coming to the table and just signing the agreement that was put in front of them. Taylor was very smart even at 15, and her dad was extremely smart. So she didn't sign a bad deal. Now, one could argue that she may have made a bad decision. If her masters were that important to her, she may have made a bad decision years later in choosing to leave and not retain the ownership of those masters. But as in everything, guys, hindsight is 20/20. We never know what's going to happen. So I don't agree with the fact that a lot of people are running around right now saying that Taylor Swift was taken advantage of, that she was forced to sign a bad deal when she was 15. She wasn't. There were people like her father and Scott Borchetta and everybody else involved that were willing to take a chance on someone that they saw as talented, somebody that they saw was going to go somewhere in the business. That's how this business works. Producers, record labels, managers, booking agents. At some point, you've got to take a chance on an artist. Now, we don't see that so much anymore these days. Like I always say, the way the music business model works today is that all of these places, the record labels, publishing companies, management companies, touring companies, booking agents, they're looking for a train that's already on the move. But back then, when Taylor Swift was 15, it really was still kind of the old west in the music business, especially the country music business, and you had to find an artist that you were willing to bet on. Say what you will about Scott Borchetta. He has an eye for talent, and he recognized an opportunity. Guys, this is the music business. I don't know how many times I have to say this before it really starts to sink in. When you are in your bedroom playing your guitar, playing your piano, writing songs, and drawing enjoyment from it, that is music. The minute that you expect to take that creation that you're making anywhere beyond the confines of your bedroom, and you want to give it to somebody else, or you want somebody else's opinion on it, or you want to sell it, or you expect it to put you on a stage somewhere, now you've left music and you've entered the music business. And when you enter the music business, you're no longer dealing with creatives. You're no longer dealing with people that look at things the way that you look at them, the way that you have emotional ties to your creation the way that you do. Now it's a numbers game, and you're dealing with people who are looking for an opportunity to make money. Now, one of the things that I'm sick and tired of is seeing that process demonized. It's absolutely ridiculous that we demonize the people that try to make money in this business. It happens to me all the time. Guys, that's just plain wrong. Nobody faults Starbucks for making money. Nobody faults General Motors for selling cars or Kroger for selling groceries. Nobody feels bad for those people or thinks they're evil. But somehow when artists make the decision to get involved in the music industry, everybody always assumes that they are being taken advantage of. Now, does that happen? It absolutely happens. I can't tell you the number of times that I've worked with an artist or produced an artist that has been severely taken advantage of. But guys, I put something out on social media, a comment to a post that I made yesterday that I think is very important. Artists can only be taken advantage of when they allow themselves to be taken advantage of. They believe what people tell them. They only want to hear people tell them what they want to hear. Ambition and the need and almost desire and hunger to succeed sometimes gets artists to do things they shouldn't do, make decisions that they shouldn't make, and trust people that they shouldn't make. Being that, it's almost like a situation of making yourself desperate. You're so desperate to have that success that you're willing to go into business with anybody that tells you they can make it happen, and you end up making a bad decision, signing a bad deal. I, for one, believe that is not the case with what happened with Taylor Swift. Taylor Swift, during her career with Big Machine Records, to my knowledge, never complained about the deal that she signed. And I don't think she's ever complained about the deal that was in place while she was with Big Machine. She's not even complaining about it now. What she's saying is that, man, I knew that you were going to sell them, but I sure wish you hadn't sold them to that guy, because I don't like that guy very much. There's not much that can be done about that. Matter of fact, there's nothing that can be done about that. Do I sympathize with Taylor? I absolutely do, because those masters are her heart and soul. But I also know that she had a chance to retain them and she chose to leave. Now, that may not have been the condition that she wanted to have to agree to in order to get them, but that's the business world. That's the way that it works. I don't think that Big Machine was predatory in signing Taylor. I don't think she signed a predatory deal. Besides, look at the fact, everything worked out just fine for Taylor Swift, and it's going to continue to work out for Taylor Swift, no matter who owns or controls those masters. The lesson for you to take away is, I understand that you want to be successful. I understand that you want the things that you want. But are you so desperate that it makes you go blind to the facts of reality? Don't let your ambition lead you blindly. Make smart decisions. Slow down. Take your time. Consult with people who have absolutely nothing to gain. See, there's a big difference there. I see a lot of artists, they get counsel from people who tend to benefit if this artist signs this deal or if this artist does this. The managers, the lawyers, they all make money based on that decision. So which way do you think they're going to advise you to go? If you're a young artist or songwriter, before you sign any deal, talk with somebody who knows what they're talking about, who knows the music business, not music. Don't talk to a co-writer friend. Don't talk to another artist. Talk to somebody who knows and understands the music business. Anytime you're going into a deal like this, think 10 years down the road. Don't think about tomorrow. Don't think about next week or your next album. Think about where you want to be 10 years down the road, and accept and take wise counsel from people who understand the music business first and foremost, and second, have nothing to gain from whether you sign that deal or not. I promise you it will be the most important decision that you've ever made, or it will be the biggest mistake you've ever made. Most of the times you've only got one shot to get it right. Make sure that you get it right. And taking a little time, talking to a few more people, and finding trusted counselors and advisors that can advise you on making right decisions will prove to be the most valuable thing that you will ever do in your music business career. This drama is going to keep unfolding. We haven't heard the last. There are a lot of artists that are coming out on Scooter Braun's side, a lot of artists that are coming out on Taylor Swift's side, and a lot of people coming out on Scott Borchetta's side. It's going to be interesting to see, and more drama is going to unfold. If you're smart, don't get wrapped up in the mainstream culture and pop culture, social media back and forth of it. Take this opportunity to take a look behind the curtain at the wizards running the business. Take this opportunity to see what they're capable of. Most importantly, take this as an opportunity for you to learn, to educate yourself and inform yourself, so that should a position like this ever find you, you make a smart decision. And that's the most important thing to me. Guys, thank you so much for checking out another episode of the Steve Freeman Podcast. I know today's episode was way longer than normal, but I wanted to go through all of this in detail. I wanted to get all of the he said, she said in there so that you know the facts. I know a lot of people are researching this and looking at it as an opportunity to learn something about the music business. So I'm sorry it went so long today, but I wanted to make sure that we covered it in detail. I told you at the top of the show that I have something special in the month of July. If you are not a member of my weekly newsletter, The Revolution, you need to join right now. It's absolutely free. I don't share your information. You can join at my website, thestevefreeman.com or thestevefreemanpodcast.com. What I'm doing in the month of July is I'm selecting two people, artists, songwriters, producers. I'm going to give away 2 one-on-one coaching mentoring sessions with me. These are 2-hour video, Skype, or in-person sessions where we talk about your career, we talk about your marketing, your branding, your image, your music, and we create a strategy that's right for you. We can go over your songs. I can give you some advice. I don't believe in critiquing because I don't accept criticism, but I can help you with the process of writing songs. Whatever it is that you want from me during those 2 hours, you get it. And I'm giving away 2 of them in the month of July, but I'm only giving them away to subscribers and members of The Revolution. So if you haven't subscribed, do so, and maybe you'll be one of the lucky winners. TheSteveFreeman.com or TheSteveFreemanPodcast.com is where you can join The Revolution. You can also do it from the link in my profile on Instagram. You can do it there as well. Speaking of, if you're not following me on social media, please do. I'd love to have you a part of the family, and I can follow you back as well. It's at The Steve Freeman on all social media outlets. If you are listening to the podcast on Apple Podcast, iHeartRadio, Google Podcast, or Spotify, you can subscribe to the podcast so that every episode, Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, is automatically added to your playlist. I would love to have you do that. If you're watching and enjoying the video version of the podcast on YouTube, subscribe to the YouTube channel, but make sure that you hit that bell icon so that you're notified every time I upload new content. Guys, thank you for being here, and as always, keep being creative, keep pressing the boundaries, and there's nothing wrong with being independent. See you in the next one.
Last night I was screaming out loud.